This is a tutorial for Leoni Meadows 2013 Cowboy Camp. Basic saddling up and grooming. So, this is CB. He's my camp horse. When we're grooming, we want to groom in the areas that the saddler is in for camp. The only camp purposes is what we're going to teach the kids. So, where the saddle is, under the girth. There's not a back girth on all of our saddles. So, the total process of saddling for a staff member should take less than 5 minutes. A quick job. Make sure that there's no burrs or anything. Start with the curry comb. Straight brush. Okay. Alright, so picking hooves, we're going to watch the kids do it. We're going to teach them how to do it first, but we're going to be there watching them do it the whole time just to make sure that they're being safe, because this is, a big animal, and if they get stepped on, it hurts. And we don't want them to get stepped on or hurt or anything. So, what we do is we tell the kids to find a staff member when they are ready to pick their horse's hooves, a free staff member, and the staff member will go and watch, and that way if there's any problems, like the kid can't get the horse's hoof up, or the horse is being difficult, moving around, the staff member can step in and do it, because we don't want the kids to get hurt, and the staff are less likely to get hurt in this type of situation. So what we do is we teach the kids to start up here, run their hand down, and touch and squeeze the chestnut. And see, he already picked up. If we teach the horses pretty early on that if we squeeze their chestnut and they pick their hoof up, then it's more comfortable for them, because we just go down and, pick up the hoof, clean it out. Now, if the horse doesn't come up while touching the chestnut, usually we go down and we squeeze the tendon. Again, this is another trigger point. The horse may come up. If the tendon doesn't work, we go all the way down to the fetlock, which some of the horses don't really have fetlocks, so this is kind of hard to do. And we try to pull that joint up and then bring it up. So that's the very last thing we try to do. Now, a lot of our horses are really smart, and they know how to they know how to ignore all of those. So a lot of times you'll have to lean into them, get their weight on their other feet, and pick them up. Obviously, the kids aren't that big, so when it comes to leaning on the horse to try to pick them up, they're not going to be able to do that. So that's why the staff member is there. Most of our horses are shod, which means they'll have a shoe here. We want to clean out all of that area around the shoe, or inside the shoe, and in the grooves by the frog. Make sure there's no rocks. And also, this will keep our thrush level down as well. Thrush is an infection of the frog, and it's just gross, rotting stuff in there. Anyway, if we clean out their hooves every day, that won't happen as often. So then we want to set the horse's foot down instead of drop them, because then they're happier, we're happier, the kids are happier. So that's picking the hooves. Okay, saddle pad, obviously. Start on the left side, push the saddle pad up higher, and then push it back to where it's supposed to be. And that's even a little high from where it's supposed to be, because when I put the saddle on, I'm going to slide the whole thing back again. Again, from the left side, clean it up gently. Make sure it's where it's supposed to be. Slide the whole thing back. What we tell the kids is cut the shoulder in half, and that's where the saddle pad's supposed to be. And then about 2 inches from the front of the saddle pad is where we put the saddle. And kids will have a hard time about this, but I need you guys to know so that you can teach them. Then we go around to the other side, bring everything down and straight, because you don't want anything twisted. Back side. Most of the saddles don't have breast collars on, but you should know how to put it on anyway. Basically, if it has a breast collar, there should be a D-ring here. You put it on. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it super loose either. You want the ring of the breast collar in the middle of their chest. And then while he's just standing there, it shouldn't really be tight. It should just like lay nicely against him. This is where we get a little particular. With our saddles at camp, we're going to tie our latigos on. Some just use the buckle, but we don't always have buckles on our cinches, so we need to tie them on. This is how we're going to teach the kids too. So, we went through once. We'll come up here for the second time. So that's 4 layers of leather, or in this case, nylon. And we want to cinch them up a little bit. Before we cinch them up too tight, we're going to do our 4H knot. Our 4H is our head, hind, horn, because we're riding western, and hoof. And that's what we're going to teach the kids. So we made our first thing to the head. We're going to go back to the hind, and behind the ring, up toward the horn, and down to the hoof. And it kind of looks like a tie. Knot. Anyway, so once we tie the knot, then we can tighten it a little bit. We want to make sure that we're not too tight. You check down here at the bottom of the girth, and if you can fit 2 or 3 fingers in it, it's probably good. We don't want to not be able to fit any fingers in it, because that's going to be super tight on the horse and they're going to be grumpy. We want happy horses, because if we have happy horses, we have happy kids. Yeah, and you just work that through. Bring this down. Again, breast collar if you have one. Most likely we won't. Clip that onto the ring on the girth. Cinch. We want to make sure all of our bridles fit. And we'll do that at the beginning of camp. But whenever we're working with our horse's head, we want to untie them, because a lot of times we don't know these horses very well. And even if they did, if they were asleep and we spooked them, and like even if we knew them very well, they could still pull back. And that's not good. So when we go to bridle, we want to hold the headstall in our right hand, and the bit cradles in our hand like this, if you can see that, in our left hand. We go over here. We catch the horse's nose, so if he moves away, I can bring him back. And we usually stick our thumb between the teeth back here, and a lot of them will open right up, like he's doing. And just take the bit right in there. Then we go far ear first, near ear last. And we want to make sure our horses have a lot of hair a lot of times. So we want to make sure that all that is free and loose of the rigging, because after a couple of hours of that being stuck in there, they get really sweaty and itchy, and it's not very comfortable. So we want to make our horses as comfortable as possible. So that's that. Not all, but some of our horses will have a throat latch here. Mine is a buckle one. Camp ones are a little different, but that's okay. We'll go over that when we get there. You want to make sure that that's, not hanging down really loose. You want to be able to put a couple fingers in there. But you don't want it super tight that it's like choking him like that. So that's good. When we're checking the fit of the bridle, you want the bit to rest in the corner of his mouth. And there are wrinkles here, but mostly because the bit is resting in there and causing the wrinkles. We don't want it pulling back all the time, because then that creates pressure all the time in the horse. horse's mouth. So we want to adjust them so the bit's just sitting there. Alright, and then after that, put the reins over the head. Make sure he's not chewing on them, which he is. Let go. Put the reins over the head. And if we're going to leave the horse for a while, then we're going to cross the reins on the saddle horn. This way, if they toss their head and stuff, the reins are less likely to flip up here, and they're less likely to get like a foot stuck through it or any of that. That's just an extra little safety measure. So when they're like this, they're less likely to do that. It's not impossible, but it's less likely. And that's bridling up. Now this horse would be ready to put a camper on. When we are putting campers on, we leave the lead ropes on and the halters on, because if we're on the trail and we need to get the campers off and tie the horses up, if we don't have these lead ropes, we can't tie them up. So we leave them on. So when we deal with that with the saddle, since we're all riding Western, take the lead rope, your hand like this, twist it toward the horse, and lay that first twist over the saddle so you see it's looped. And you want to make sure that there's slack here, because you don't want the lead rope impeding the horse's movement, but not so much that he can get a foot through again. And you're going to take another loop and do the same thing, twist it towards the horse and put that over the horn, and then you just pull it tight. And a lot of the times that will be enough to keep the lead rope there without it falling off or getting stuck. Some of our lead ropes are a little temperamental, so like this is also something I try to teach the kids, so that if they're on the horse and they see their lead rope coming loose, they can fix it themselves before it becomes a problem. If the lead rope's too long after this, you can either go once more and make that loop below the other two, kind of like that, or sometimes what I'll do is I'll just loop it like this. Just loose, not super tight, and that way the end of the lead rope's not going to get stepped on by the horse. Alright, so now we're going to untack. Basically untacking is the same, it's just opposite of what we did. So reins overhead, he's going to chew on everything. Make sure the horse is loose, not tied. And slip this off. Now you don't want to drop the bit in his mouth, because the bit can hit his teeth and that's sore, and that makes our horses kind of grumpy. You want to just kind of let them back out of it, or let it go on their own. Some horses sit there and suck on it, which is kind of funny. So once we're done with that, what we do when we're at the barn is we put the bridle on the saddle horn like this, and then we take the reins and we loop them up like this. These are kind of short reins, but our reins at camp are long, like that. And a lot of the saddles have saddle strings here. We want to teach the kids to tie the bridle onto the saddle so that the tack stays where it's supposed to be. A lot of times the bridles will get separated and we can't find them, and we have to assign a new bridle, and it just takes time. So we want to tie the bridle on so that it stays with the horse's saddle. All the horses have their own assigned tack, which we will do during staff week. After that, then you can tie them back up. Alright, so undoing. Just let that loose. This is another part that I want to make sure everybody teaches the kids and everybody knows, because it just makes the barn a lot neater and makes it easier to saddle up the next time. So when we undo the latigo, we're going to pull everything out just like this. And then we're going to put it away in a fashion that it will stay put away instead of fall out. What we're going to do is we're going to come down to about here, push the latigo behind our hand, and bring it up through the loop. So that there's two loops here. After we have two loops, or two more bunny ears, we like to use bunnies, we're going to do that same saddle knot that we did before, the 4H knot. So head, hind, horn, and hoof. And that makes it so that the latigo will not disappear. Well, not disappear, but fall apart. So when we're walking with the saddle and the kids are, low to the ground, they can, if this was not tied, they could step on it, the whole thing comes apart. Or if they have it looped up, and it just takes extra time saddling. So, if we have it put away properly, when we go to saddle the next day, they don't even have to take it out all the way. They just undo the knot, and they put it through the cinch, and it's super easy, and they just keep going. And that just makes the whole, when we have all the saddles in the barn, that makes everything nicer and neater, and it makes it so that the kids won't trip over loose things falling on the ground. And it'll just make our jobs easier overall. Now, what we're going to teach the kids when we... He untied himself. Alright, when we teach the kids how to unsaddle, we want them to come over here and put the cinch and anything else that's over here up. Not necessarily the stirrup and the fender. Just the stuff that could drag on the ground. And then we want them to take everything off at once. Pad and saddle. And then, because they'll have partners, either the partner can take something from them or they can just take it to the barn themselves, like this. And then get it put away. So I'm going to pretend the horse is the saddle rack, which he's not, obviously. So, the kids come to the barn. He's got his saddle. He's taken the blanket out from underneath. The saddles all have their assigned place to go that has the horse's name on it. And so if the kids put their saddles away in the right place, we'll also teach them this, and we'll teach you guys this. It makes our job a lot easier because we don't lose saddles, and the horses have to have their saddle that we assign to them during staff week. So, make sure they're put in the right place. Obviously, he's not a saddle rack, so it doesn't matter. We're going to put the saddle up. We're going to make sure that the fender on both sides is hanging down, and the cinch is up, sweaty side up. Thank you, my dear. Give. He's helping me. Then we're going to take the saddle pad. We're going to make sure all this stuff is hanging loose and not stuck onto the saddle because it'll get bent. We're going to take the saddle pad dirty side up or sweaty side up. You won't be able to tell as easily as this pad because most of our pads aren't like one side is specifically up and one side is specifically down. They're the same on both sides a lot of times. So you just have to tell the kids to find the wet side. And we're going to put it wet side up. And so on the saddle rack, that's how it should look. And you see that it's not super messy, it's not super crazy looking, and it will stay there till the next day. And it'll allow the pad and the cinch to dry, because our horses do get sweaty. Now, we also have an overnighter where we don't have saddle racks. So what we want to do there, want to help again? Here, hold that. Yeah, hold that. Obviously not throw your pad on the ground. On our overnighter, since we don't have saddle racks, we want the kids to put the saddle on its horn facing downhill. So I guess it's kind of that way. That way the saddle won't fall over and burrs won't get stuck in the fuzzy part under the saddle. The bridle, oh wait, okay. So the cinch will then go up over the saddle like so. Again, wet side up. And then we'll put the pad on wet side up, just like this. And then we'll usually put the bridle on. Yeah, I didn't place it right because it's falling over. And we'll put the bridle on top. And this, it's not the neatest way to do it, but it's what we have at camp in our overnighter area. So, as long as all this stuff stays together, it's pretty easy for the kids to find their saddle again the next morning. Also, what they can do is they can put their helmet that they used back here in the saddle, and they just bring their stirrups, just to make it so it doesn't take up much space, they bring their stirrups in a circle behind. And that is saddling. So I'm going to